Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and today is an Enhancement Shaman video. I know, it's weird, I'm a rogue main, but I've checked out the channel, and it looks like there's a lot of you guys that are actually very interested in Shaman-based content, so I felt like it would be a good idea to check out some of the changes Blizzard is making to future PTR for Enhancement Shamans. Now, this isn't some massively new change, there's nothing new being added, it's more like changes to the talents to make them more competitive. If you take a look at Shaman's Icy Veins, for example, I mean, the amount of check marks you have per row is limited. And it looks like there's always a viable talent in every single row, and you never have to switch out of it. I've been playing Shaman since level 20, and I've leveled enough to get the Heritage Armor. So I've been exploring the class, and I'm super excited about the class and the changes it's getting in patch 8.1. So I felt like it would be worth checking it out. I've played this class before back in the beta, and I haven't really played it through changes that much, but it hasn't changed too much. It got like flat buffs, flat nerfs, but no huge playstyle overlay. Anyway, let's take a look at the changes they are coming up with. First of all, they're changing the whole first row. Not completely, but they're adjusting some of the talents to make lesser talents more viable and stronger talents less so. Lightning Shield right now is the best option. It is the most versatile, it pumps a lot of damage, and it has a Maelstrom generation once you get to 20 stacks. It works well with single target as well as AoE. Blizzard is eliminating the Maelstrom generation completely, so you have the damage bonus of this ability, but in terms of Maelstrom, it was just too lucrative and it was too good. In terms of competing with something like Hot Hand, which is not really Maelstrom generation, but a RNG chance for Lava Burst to be, or Lava Lash to cost no Maelstrom. It's like a free Maelstrom type of free global type of ability, but it never played up as well as Lightning Shield. It does deal a lot more damage, but it's just pure single target, which is not always an ideal situation for Enhance. Boulder Fist is just not worth, the damage increase is not worth, so Blizzard is buffing this by 35%. So you actually have a strong single target, pure single target ability. You have Lightning Shield, which works for single target and AoE for the damage increase and the actual like Lightning Shield buff itself. No longer Maelstrom generation, and if you want to generate Maelstrom, Boulder Fist would be the choice with 35% damage increase to make it more consistent. I'm generally not a huge fan of them nerfing certain trades that are too strong, but this one might have been needed. And I feel like at least it'll offer Enhanced Shamans not like, hey, I have to go Lightning Shield no matter the situation. Now it's like, Lightning Shield is pretty good in some cases, Hot Hand could be good in others, and Boulder Fist with its buff could be worth running. And of course there's different traits to make it all viable and good. Next row is going to be the next row. Forceful Winds is getting nerfed because I guess it's just too strong. Reduced from 100% per stack to 80%. Is that a good idea? Forceful Winds is just too strong. Whenever you are DPSing down an enemy and you got those big procs of Wind Fury, this is where it's at, man. That's where most of the damage comes from, and it's really, really good, and it's crazy. And completely understandable why Blizzard would want to nerf it, but I don't really know. Is it worth? So it's the best talent, the only one in the option. What are the other ones, and what are the changes they're getting? Totem Mastery is getting buffed, and Totem Mastery is more supposed to be that consistent talent where you put down your totems and you gain a bunch of buffs. There was one right here with Storm Totem. It increases your damage of Storm Strike by 5% only. Blizzard wants to buff it to 10%. So 5% extra damage to your Storm Strike to make it more of a consistent playstyle rather than one that relies on RNG. That could be good. Could be. Won't say it's the best. Landslide is also getting changed too. Rock Biter has a 20% chance to increase the damage of your next Storm Strike by 100%. So this 20% chance is going up to 40%. The way I look at it is 20% is only 1 in 5th. So let's see how often does it proc. First one, did it proc? Stormbreaker has no cooldown. No, it wasn't quite Landslide. Second, did it proc? Nope. Third, did it proc? It should be 1 in 5 chance. Fourth, did it proc? Nope. And on 5th it should proc. It does proc on 5th. So that is a 1 in 5 chance, literally 20%. So to give you more chances for it to proc, a 40%, which I think the way I look at it is it's close to 50%, so it's almost a 50% chance for it to proc, is actually pretty good. Right now, the way that it plays is just not consistent enough, and if you're going through rotation, you just cannot expect it. The talent can be really, really good when you get it set up. Like, for example, when you get the Stormbringer buff, and then if you can get together the Landslide at the same time, you can do big damage to an enemy. But it's all RNG. And because of lack of consistency, bringing it up to 40% is still a percent chance. But a 40% I feel like is a lot better than 20. I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments below what are your thoughts. I do like this change. I'm happy with the Totem Mastery change to have a consistent buff for any of my damage that I'm able to put out as enhancement. Because Forcible Winds is good, and it does proc pretty often, and it seems to, whenever proc, you pump damage like no other. But I'm also not a huge fan of so much RNG with a spec. What I really liked about Enhancement Shaman Legion is the Doom Ham, for example, the Doom Winds ability. It gave you guaranteed Wind Fury for a short moment. So you had abilities in regards to burst. You had more of like a control behind it. Right now, as long as I played Enhance, it just feels like there's just too much RNG. I already play Outlaw Rogue, I get enough RNG in my bowl of cereal. Alright, next talent that we could talk about is going to be the level 60 row. Right now, Syrian Assault is just way too good, and in terms of damage increase, right now it is just the best. And there's no really decent damage alternatives. The dot itself is pretty decent, and it's basically the only one that really pumps any damage when it comes to the actual application. Hailstorm is not worth the damage itself. It just doesn't do anything. It's a very low damage output. And what a lot of people don't like about it is it's another buff that you got to maintain now. So you got to maintain your Flame Tongue, you got to generate all the Maelstrom, you got to spend the Maelstrom, you might make sure that buff is running, get the Flame Tongue rolling, so you feel like you're juggling too many things at the same time. And then you also got to make sure you're using the Rock Body charges, and it just doesn't really fit into the playstyle. There's multiple different aspects that make it not work as well, but the damage alone is just not worth at all. I know I'm not max level, but to see kind of where the damage is at compared to my other abilities, it's just... I mean, it's laughable. It is actually laughable. So what they're doing is trying to buff it by 50% to try to make it a little bit stronger. Then Overcharge is getting a buff. Instead of having a 12-second cooldown baseline reduced by haste, it is now going to have a 9-second cooldown baseline reduced by haste, so more lightning bolts potentially to strike at your enemy. That's actually a pretty good idea, and it's I think a good way to fix this talent. Instead of just buffing the damage, you could just give you more lightning bolts. I always liked Overcharge back in Legion. I always found really cool combinations. Ever since I kind of gutted this talent, I wasn't nearly as happy, but I do like this change, and hopefully it'll give Hailstorm and Overcharge at least potential to be something viable and worth and decent. Then we have a change in the AoE tree. Sundering is just way too good for the damage, and the little bit CC that it provides is also way too strong. It is a very flexible choice in the row, and what they're doing with it is they're not nerfing it. They're actually just buffing Fury of Air, but 40%. So you actually have a decent AoE, which I guess has used to have some single target potential too. And then you have Crash and Storms also getting buffed by 40% to hopefully compete with Sundering. I like this idea that just let's buff these talents, even though they're not changing them, just buff them to make them viable. I feel like Sundering is still too good. I don't think any of these changes is going to do too much for every aspect of the game. I feel like it could have potentially a lot more of personal choice what you want to pick. It could give you a lot more viable options in PvP, in PvE. I think it's going to really revolve around traits and trinkets in the build that you're going for though. So I feel like maybe Lightning Shield, Forceful Wind, Searing Assault, Sundering, and whatever you want for the last row is still going to be a viable option if you run certain traits. But to have Boulder Fist, maybe something more of a viable thing that you can just rely on in terms of Maelstrom generation, maybe Totem Mastery for that flat Storm Strike damage increase, and maybe even like something like Overcharge for fights where there's a lot of, let's say the enemy gets a distance a lot and you got to be able to zap them from Lightning Bolt to maintain your damage. I feel like it could be maybe potentially good. I like the idea that they're trying to make a lot of these other talents better. They're not really changing the spec overall. And I feel like it has fairly decent amount of options what you want to choose. It's just those options never really been that good in terms of pure damage increases. So I actually kind of like this. I think that a lot more could be done, but I don't think Enhancement is one of those specs that's a focus in patch 8.1. We've thought that Shaman in general was going to be a focus in patch 8.1. It looks like Elemental Shaman was a way bigger focus, and they're trying to make Enhancement feel a little bit better. I am still not a huge fan of not having the Doom Winds as an ability. For PvP Enhancement, I feel like is really good, but it's definitely very limited in terms of like cleave or pure single target or I feel like you could definitely do an overhaul. Maybe Shaman's like enhancement will be taking a look again in patch like 8.1.5, and in the past Blizzard has always saved some big class changes for the 0.5 patches. We don't know if they're gonna do exactly the same thing in Battle for Azeroth, but I really do hope they do. In terms of some of the other traits they're changing, that's really about it. I know the Feral Challenge is getting taken off of GCD, so that could be really good for the mobility. Compared to Nature's Guardian, though, I don't really know if it'll be worth. Past that, I can't really think of any other change. Besides, you know, Azerite traits and whatnot, which I haven't been able to check out with my Shaman yet, because not max level, but making my way there slowly but surely. I do think that maybe certain Azerite traits could potentially be good, but the changes they made so far, I guess are okay. Also, on top of it, they're increasing the damage of all enhancement abilities by flat 5%. So even if you don't like the changes happening here, Shaman's enhancement overall are getting a 5% damage buff overall, over everything. So, I mean, I guess we couldn't really complain because it means overall it's a 5% buff with a lot more possible variety for the spec. I guess it's a good thing, yeah? Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. These changes are going to be hitting PTR very, very soon. If you're an enhancement main, let me know in the comments what are your thoughts on all these changes. And if you have any kind of builds you can think of. Also, maybe some things I can check out in terms of different traits I should be looking for once I get the Scarab to max level. Overall, it's been okay amount of changes. I was really hoping for some crazy 5% buff overall, and changes to traits to make it more viable and competitive against each other is nice. I'm not a huge fan of just nerfing talents just because they're way too good, but I guess what are you gonna do? Thank you for watching. I'll see all of you guys in the next video.